turn the ball over 25 times, typically you're not going to be anywhere close to having a shot at the end of the game. But they did, and still were able to, still unfortunately came up short. I've been trying to debate this morning back and forth. Jack and I talked about this in the 9 o'clock hour. What loss hurts the worst so far this year in the SEC play, at least? Because you have such an interesting dynamic between the first two and the last two. Coincidentally enough, the last two games between Auburn and Vanderbilt ended up with the exact same final score of 66-63. But like in the first game, you just didn't look like you belonged on the court with Mississippi State or Alabama. They ran you out of the gym pretty quickly and got drugged pretty easily in those games. That's not a good feeling, obviously, because you question, well, do we even belong in the same league as these guys with the way they were able to beat us and the way that we just didn't look like we belonged? Fast forward to the past two games where Carolina did enough to put themselves in position to win and fundamentally failed at the very end or throughout the course of the game. On Saturday's game against Auburn, you had the opportunity to take a lead with Nick Pringle going to the free throw line, misses both of his free throws, and the team shot just a smidge over 50%. And we're coming here on Monday talking about, yeah, obviously you played him close, but man, if you just nailed that one fundamental thing throughout the course of the game, we could be talking about one of the biggest upsets in program history. And then last night, you had the consistent turnover issue throughout the entire game. But then even in the late stages, those last few minutes of the game, you're still in position of having a chance to win. And again, fundamentally, things fell apart. Colin Murray-Boyles missed a couple of free throws when down by one. Now, again, he got, after the technical foul, was able to shoot two unevaded ones where nobody's around you, and he made those. But still, there were two key ones that he missed. Carolina was perfect on free throws, I believe, up to that point in the second half. He misses those, and obviously in a three-point game, those end up being key. And then at the very end of the game, you have Nick Pringle getting blocked on a shot that would have, I believe, given Carolina the lead. And then going down isn't too far ahead, but man, you're looking at 14 more games in the conference. And again, I think for a lot of people, the ship has probably sailed on making a return trip to the NCAA tournament. But just having some form of a respectable season at this point seems like it's going to be a tall task.
Yeah. You nailed him there, by the way. Nice work. Here's the thing about last night. If I'm Lamont Paris, I probably stayed awake. Drinking bourbon. And
thinking of how he's going to punish the team today.
Do you have them all carry basketballs everywhere they go? Sort of like the guy that fumbles a lot.
Oh, yeah. He's got to walk around school the next day with football. If you see him without it, then he's got to run a mile at practice.
Or pair by one try to knock it out of his hand.
Everybody go around, try to knock it out of his hand.
So here's the thing that if I'm Lamont Paris, that would have frustrated the bleep out of me last night. First of all, obviously the 25 turnovers, I'm going to try to be nice, is beyond ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous.
And we'll get to it in a little bit. He said he's never seen that before. And he's been coaching basketball a long time.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to sit here and say Vanderbilt didn't have something to do with some of that, because, look, they are very good.
They're aggressive.
At slapping the ball, getting their hands in passing lanes, doing these little things that can cause turnovers, but there's no excuse for 25 turnovers ever.
Well, and look, even some of the ones that weren't from them, just stealing it from out of your hand, there were bad dribbles, bad passes. I mean, it was everything.
I mean, and we're going to kind of look at the last 4 minutes here in a little bit, but the one pass Jacoby Wright makes across court into traffic. I'm even watching going, what did you see? What did you see right there to make you think you could make that pass?
Yeah, it's like throwing into triple.
I mean, you couldn't get a better shot with 0.6 seconds left in your life.
The fact that you got the shot off with 0.6 seconds is impressive in and of itself. Mm-hmm. The D that close, basically bank it off the back of the rim, like, another couple of inches farther in, and we're talking about an overtime game.
Yeah, I mean, you still were in position to win the game, and you can make a case that you still should have stole that W. And that's the thing if you're Lamont Paris. This is 2 games in a row, one on the road, that you had. You were in position to win the game. And if you make the plays that you expect your basketball team to make, you're 2-2 in the league, and we're having a different conversation here today.
Yep.
We're saying, wow, this team got off the deck with 2 awful losses to start the year, and they're 2-2. They beat what was going to be the number 1 team in the country. Then they went on the road, and they beat a much better basketball team than they were the year before. Now you're 2-2, and you feel a lot better.
Right.
Now you're sitting at 0-4. And now you look at the schedule going, where are the wins coming from? Right? I mean, that's what you're doing right now.
You can't help it. I mean, look, if they come, they're going to be few and far between.
That's the way it feels right now. I guess if you are trying to keep your glass as half full as possible, you're saying, but you know what? They were in position to win the last 2. One was on the road, tough to win in this year's SEC, away from home. 2, you had Auburn on the ropes and should have beat them. So maybe you're pushing yourself in the right direction to maybe get more wins than a lot of people expect.
Right.
But think about the mountain to climb to get 500 in the league right now.
Oh, my goodness.
Exactly. That's Mount Everest with Vaseline shoes at this point. It's just very difficult. And, I mean, 0-4 is 0-4. We can talk about woulda, coulda, shoulda, if, ands, buts. You know, if your aunt had bleep, she'd be your uncle, whatever, right?
Right.
But you're 0-4 in the league in what might be the most difficult SEC in the history of the conference when we talk about basketball. I mean, I was watching some of the other games last night, and, you know, this thing is it's a cage match every night.
It really is, and especially going on the road, as road teams have struggled so far through the week and a half, 2 weeks we've been doing conference play right now. So having an opportunity to take a win on the road, as bad as you played, you were still there at the very end, make a couple of key plays. You could have stolen a road win against a team that's not elite by any means, but fine. And that obviously adds a total to your win column there. But now you're going 0-4 to another road venue. And again, Oklahoma's not won any games either. So, they're in the kind of the same boat as you. But I don't know where the reprieve comes, because you're not going to go through any kind of stretch of 2 to 3 games without seeing a tournament team at some point.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is, wow. I mean, it's landmine after landmine. And, like, the last 4 minutes of that game against Vandy, you have the bad pass by Jacoby Wright, which I still can't figure out why he threw it. Zach Davis just losing the basketball. I mean, he's driving. He's going to his left. He's right-handed, so it's not like his dominant side, but he's going left through the lane. He's got some space. Nobody's really near him, and all of a sudden the ball's out of bounds.
It goes swatted.
Yeah, that's what it was like. It was like the sixth defender was like poltergeist.
Yeah. Memorial Gym's a weird place. There's probably a graveyard under there or something like that. Gotta be
something bizarre, some old burial ground.
Yeah.
But and then you had, again, Colin Murray-Boyles missed 2 free throws. It was killer. You had and again, sometimes the other team makes plays. McLaughlin, the big for Vanderbilt, on that key last possession, not only is helping out on Colin Murray-Boyles to get the ball out of Murray-Boyles' hands, but then he turns and quickly blocks Nick Pringle. That's a dunk or a layup, and South Carolina's ahead. That was a hell of a play by McLaughlin.
It was a great play, and then he steals it from him for the putback that helped them win the game.
And the other frustrating part there is Pringle's got the box.
Yeah.
Pringle's got his body on McLaughlin, but again, McLaughlin, how I put this nice, lower body
is thick.
Is a lot more thicker than Nick's.
Yeah.
And maybe McLaughlin, basically, it's like, it's like when you were a kid and you were at some family party and your aunt, who is thick, gives you the little butt on the dance floor.
And she knocks you across the room.
Well, Nick got the butt from Aunt McLaughlin and knocked him across the lane, and McLaughlin gets the putback.
Yep.
But Nick, again, if you're Lamont, the frustrating part is your guy's got his body on him.
Yeah, you were in the right place to make that play. And you weren't able to make it.
You got outbutted, so to speak.
In the non-technical term, sure.
Technical term, you got outbutted. But that's the frustrating part of this whole last 4 minutes. We just went over some of them, and there's probably a couple more I'm forgetting, because I'm doing this without looking on my computer. But there were so many things you could have done at the end of that, in that last 4 minute span, because Vanderbilt wasn't making shots.
No.
They got, I think, 1 offensive rebound that ended up being a putback. But there were so many things you could have done that last 4 minutes to steal a game, despite the fact you did everything you could to hand it to them. Now, I know, and again, we'll get into it, about the officiating, especially with A.J. Hoggard and Jacoby Wright. And look, was Hoggard committing an offensive foul? Absolutely. You can't be thrusting your shoulder into a guy's chest and knocking them halfway across the court. You can't be dribbling with one hand and forearm shivering a guy with the other hand. But here's what happened. The refs let you do it, and they let you play like that. So what are you going to do if you're AJ?
You're going to keep pushing the limit.
You keep doing it. And even John Sunvold, who's been doing games like, I think he did Fred Flintstone's high school games.
Yeah.
Sunvold even said on the last Vanderbilt possession, he said this. He goes, Hoggard's got to be careful because sooner or later that could get called on him. He could get an offensive foul.
You're going to find out how far you can push it until they call it on you and then backing down. But again, they're not going to call it. I'm going to keep doing it.
And again, I understand Jacoby Wright because, I'm not a very thick individual either.
Sure.
Neither are you.
No, I'm not.
And if you've ever played basketball and you go up against someone who is thicker than you and they're giving you the business, so to speak, it's frustrating, especially when you know what they're doing is a foul and no one's calling it, so they just keep doing it. I get Jacoby Wright's frustration. I was frustrated watching it because Hoggard was committing offensive foul after offensive foul after offensive foul. And there were times Jacoby Wright got called for the block.
Yeah.
And Sunvold even said, what do you want him to do? What do you want him to do at this point? But, again, if I'm Hoggard and you're not calling anything on me, and I'm physically bigger than the guy that's guarding me, and you're letting me get away with pushing him and forearming him and shouldering him, I'm going to keep doing it till you call something.
Yep.
And that's not why they lost. South Carolina did not lose because of that. South Carolina lost because they gave the basketball away 25 times. And the last 4 minutes of that game, with key opportunities to win the game, they didn't finish the plays. But it was a frustrating game to watch. If you're a Gamecock fan, that one drove you nuts.
It's been a frustrating month of January so far, and we're halfway through.
Absolutely. All right, it's a halftime show. David Ayers here punching buttons and going on illegal internet sites while we're talking. Tyler Head's here, Terry Ford. It's a halftime show. Let's talk about what's going on with the women later tonight. That's next here on The Game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. All right, time to talk some Gamecocks on the women's side. Taking on Bama. We got a 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG. Now, Alabama's ranked.
They are.
But you fill in the butt on Alabama.
Yeah, so they've been without Sarah Ashley Barker, one of their best players for the past couple games. They obviously got road graded by Texas last week, 84 to 40. And again, I think they're really missing, her out there. She's the team's second leading scorer and does not appear she's going to be available tonight either.
So, I mean, again, advantage South Carolina. Not that it would have mattered a ton, but yeah, Bama's a better team with their leading scorer, obviously. But still, this is a game. If South Carolina plays to the level of South Carolina plays, they should handle their business against the Tide. And typically, in these situations, Dawn Staley's squad handles their business.
Yes.
So there should be some business handling.
And again, a lot of the concerns we had about this team were alleviated in a lot of ways with the game that they played on Sunday. Now, funny enough, they also had a fair share of turnovers themselves, which seems like nothing compared to what the men did last night. But even with the turnovers, they played such good defense. They forced Texas into so many bad shots. It basically negated it, and they had a comfortable win. So, again, they've been... in a weird way, they've been playing their best basketball without one of their best players in Ashton Watkins because you've had everybody else have to step up, take on, bigger roles and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes those kind of things can unify a team, and it seems to be working for South Carolina.
You're right. A lot of times, that next player up mentality, players who are good but have had a limited role now get a chance to get a bigger role, and they get their chance to shine in that bigger role. And the other part of, as much as South Carolina turned the ball over against Texas on the women's side, defensively they were so good, and offensively they were massively efficient.
Very.
They moved the ball really well. They got good shots. At one point, we keep talking about, they were shooting over 70% from the floor against Texas in that game at CLA.
Texas was like at 15.
Yeah, it just the efficiency in which South Carolina played at both ends of the court negated the sloppiness with the rock that they had at times in the game. So, Dawn Staley, let's get to this real quick there, David Dare. Dawn Staley, she gives us her scouting report on Alabama and also discusses that one issue that the Gamecocks had against Texas, the turnovers.
Alabama's always tough. They're well coached. They always have great guard play. They can shoot the ball. Like, they can shoot if they're allowed to make what they're comfortably take each game, we're in trouble. Hard place to play as well. So for us, it's our habits. It's just packing our habits and hopefully guard the three-point line and guard the paint. And then with the turnovers, we don't really turn the ball over. We're a pretty good team that takes care of the basketball. I think we got a little bit overzealous and playing too fast because they were so wide open. Like, they saw the openings, but they didn't anticipate them closing the space out, or it was just an errant pass. So, it's something that you address in film. You talk about when it happens here, but you don't go too crazy over, because I want our team playing like comfortably. They recognize when they're making mistakes, and I don't compound it unless they compound their mistakes.
Yeah, there's always that line. It's one thing if your team did it game after game after game, right? Where you were very sloppy, you turned the ball over a lot, you weren't getting yourself in your offense because of your sloppiness and all that stuff. But if you have a game where you turn it over more than you typically do, you go, okay, all right, let's just hunker back in and be who we are. And we know the mistakes because we typically don't make them, right?
Sure.
So it's easier to correct if this is something that is, and plus look, think of the backcourt with all of what you have back there with Pow and Hall and Fawali and Johnson. And this should not be an issue moving forward. Very simple.
It shouldn't be. No.
All right. Also, Dawn Staley talking about the importance of the bench and how, and the bench, by the way, is really good, how important the bench is for South Carolina as the schedule obviously gets tougher through SEC play. Cut 12, Dave.
We use it to our advantage, obviously, by playing a lot of players. They all deserve to be on the floor. Some of them that don't play deserve a little bit more. It helps in the whole longevity of a season. This stretch that we're in right now, it's tough. It's tough. I think during a stretch like this, during a stretch of conference play, it's about trusting your team. It's about trusting your habits that you've built, and we've been able to do that for most of the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, Fulwiley, Johnson, and Edwards start for what percentage of teams in the country?
98, 99 probably,
Yes.
if even that low.
There you go. And that's a low estimate.
Yeah, it's
You're
a low
right.
estimate.
So that's how good this bench is. And we've seen it, whether it's taking over a game in larger waves or smaller waves. When you go to that bench, no team in America can match what you do when you go, like, bench for bench.
No, not at all.
No one.
I mean, Texas is one of those teams that I think was comparable, and they rolled pretty deep on their bench. They actually outscored South Carolina's bench 28-22 on Sunday. But even then, they were still no match, because I think the talent that you have on your bench here supersedes anybody else around the country. There's a lot of teams around the country who just don't have very deep benches at all. So you're either going up against a bunch of starters that are gassed, or you're going up against a wave of second-tier players that aren't nearly as good as what you have.
And that's such a huge advantage for the Gamecock women when you go to bring in Fulwiley and Johnson and Edwards. All right, that's how Dawn Staley kind of talking about the importance of that bench as you roll SEC play again tonight on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. Our buddy Brad Muller on the call. I say Brad Muller does the play-by-play. Brad Muller does the analysis. Brad Muller is the sideline reporter. Brad Muller is the producer on site. Brad Muller is the what would we say, the video engineer as well.
I heard he works the concession stand,
The
too.
dude's ridiculous. I mean, Brad Muller working a game is phenomenal.
Listen, I used to do one-man basketball back in college for the local high school down the street from UGA, and I'm no Brad Muller.
No,
I don't know how he does
Muller is just it. If you've ever kind of like, because when we're here, we get to hear the back story of what's going on.
Sure.
You know, we get behind the curtain, and Muller's just ridiculous. He's
an animal.
He's so good. All right. Just in case you woke up and you're like, hey, what's going on in the world of sports? I haven't even brushed my teeth. I got some morning breath. I'm kind of, I don't have time right now to look. Help me out. We'll do that next. Somebody hasn't signed their contract yet, Tyler.
Oh, boy.
You want to know who that somebody is?
Take a guess. Somebody up in Chapel Hill?
We'll get to that next here on the Halftime Show. David Dare steering the ship. Tyler Head here is also hanging around. Terry Ford, we go till 3 on the game. All righty, just in case you woke up and wondered what is going on in the world of sports, a couple things. First, South Carolina, this is interesting. Trey Wallace, leading wide receiver pass catcher for Penn State, not leading receiver.
That's Tyler Warren.
Their leading receiver is going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft, Ty Warren.
What a monster he is.
He's no Brock Bowers.
He's good, though.
But he's not far from Brock Bowers.
No, he's not.
You know what he is? He's a less athletic version of Brock Bowers.
He is the best.
Does that sound?
He's the best tight end available in this draft.
Yeah. I mean, Bowers was a freak. He just was a freak. But take away Bowers and Warren just in regard to matchup issues, pass catching, things of that nature. Ty Warren's phenomenal. But the leading wide receiver at Penn State regarding productivity was Trey Wallace. Now, Wallace reports from, we know these dudes, Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell.
Yeah, I heard they're pretty good. They're reputable.
Yes. Word is that Wallace will make a visit to Columbia. Now, going South Carolina's not alone on this. You got Texas A&M, Louisville. You got North Carolina.
He fits the mold of exactly what you're looking for. He's a true one on the outside, lines up wide more often than not. Again, caught twice as many passes as any other wide receiver on that team. Experienced guy, obviously, with a good program in Penn State. So if you could land him, he'd immediately become probably your number one guy. Now, yeah, you still want to see the Harbors and guys like that come along and eventually get to that point themselves. But as far as like day one for that Virginia Tech game, you can point and say, that's our main guy at wide receiver.
And what it does lets the other guys settle in. Like, you're hoping Nick Harbor continues to evolve like he did the last, month of this season.
Yep.
You're hoping Jared Brown can stay healthy. You're hoping Mazio Bennett takes that next step to his from freshman to sophomore year. But if you add a guy who can give you a certain level of productivity because he's done it, now you got a little bit of a buffer, right? A little bit of a safety net under you.
Yeah.
And that's what Trey Wallace could be as well. So we'll see. Again, A&M's got money. Louisville, last time I checked, their bank account isn't empty. North Carolina's making a real NIL-type push because they promised the hoodie.
Yep.
So we'll see where that goes. Speaking of the hoodie.
They promised him. Did he promise back?
This might just be nothing. Or like my kid would say, a nothing burger. But Bill Belichick has not signed his contract yet at North Carolina.
Interesting. He's been on the job for month now, close to a month. It's been a little bit.
Yes. See, and you see this every now and then with coaches, that they get what they call a term sheet proposal. Basically, it's not the binding contract, but it's the agreement to move forward in the job. Both parties agree to move forward in the job, and now the legal department's going to get all the contract stuff done because obviously this is not an easy contract to do.
Sure.
So Bill and North Carolina basically have a term sheet proposal. It's the term of the deal. It's the amount of money on the deal. It's the basics.
Yeah.
Bill's got that. That's done. But Bill hasn't signed the official contract yet.
Right.
And it's coach hiring season in the NFL.
Yes, one particular job that is viewed as bigger than all the others, with one particularly meddling owner that's not afraid to upset some people to get what he wants.
And another job that's open with a guy that knows Bill and Bill knows them, who's got really cool hair and is dreamy and is not that great of a color analyst. But is
talking about Mark Davis,
part-time owner. Dreamy hair.
Dreamy hair.
But by the way, okay, so Mark Davis is rich, which makes him obviously better looking, funnier, makes him everything, right? Can you see like some woman who's trying to, make a financial move, so to speak, and she's like sitting there with him like they're in some little corner booth somewhere in Vegas, and she's playing with his hair, and she's like, you know what, Mark, yeah, Mark, God, you have nice hair. Anyone ever told you that?
You would hope he'd have enough circumstantial understanding to know that even that's a lie.
Do you think that guy's got any kind of understanding like that?
No. Look, the people like that are so detached from reality.
By the way, you wouldn't have that haircut thinking it's a bad haircut, would you?
That's my thing is like, how, with as much money as he has, can he not get something done? Whether it be a hair transplant, get a rug for crying out loud. Just something's better than that.
You know what, a hair club for men, or what's that, Bosley with the...
yeah, like there's options out there that the average person can fix their hair. He has to think it looks good.
You know what, I guarantee you he's got so many yes people around him. He gets that haircut, he jumps out of the chair. What do you guys think? You look awesome, Mark. Mark, it's great. It's perfect, Mark. Wow, Mark, your hair. No one wants to go like this. Bro, seriously? You look like Lloyd Christmas. What are you doing? Come on.
Lloyd Christmas wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
I can't say what he looks like on the radio. But.
So anyway, Tom Brady, obviously, as a minority owner with the Vegas Raiders, knows what kind of head coach Bill Belichick is.
Yes.
And yes, the end of that thing was just two people who were tired of each other, I feel like. Mm-hmm. But Brady knows how good Belichick is. And so I could see some kind of back channel conversation with Vegas and Belichick. You're right. Jerry Jones. I could see Jerry Jones reaching out to talk to Bill, even though we know that's never going to work. But point is, there's some dirt out there. Mm-hmm. There's some noise, and we'll see. But I think Belichick still coaches North Carolina. I don't think he hoofs it back to the NFL. If he does, I think it's Vegas.
Yeah, and I think there's a part of Bill Belichick that wants to prove that he's still got in the NFL. Because, again, once Brady left New England, they made the playoffs one other time the year after with Mac Jones and got killed, and obviously had a steady decline until he got, they parted ways. That's the nice way of firing someone when they've been there for so long at the end of the 23rd season. So I do think there's that part of him that still wants to go there and prove it. But I think there's also a part of him that wants to prove to people that, hey, I can go into this realm that I have no prior experience in whatsoever and go in there and be successful.
I think there's something with that, or he's talked himself into that because he was so disgusted with the lack of love from the NFL.
Sure.
Because you can talk yourself into a lot of stuff. But to be legit, if you go to North Carolina, where people think, by the way, most people think, what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
If you go there, and let's say you're really successful at North Carolina, first of all, now you've shown your chops as a coach.
Yep.
To be able to show, look, what I do fits everywhere, baby. That is an interesting add to your resume, legacy, legend, whatever you want to call it. But I wonder if Vegas comes with a legit offer and it's Brady he's dealing with, and he feels that Brady can get control of that joke of a franchise, and then he gets the idea, I can make the Raiders great again. Mm-hmm. Is that enough of a pull to... I mean, what, are you going to cut the $10 million check yourself to get it? Because right now, basically the contract that hasn't been signed says if he walks out before June 1, he owes $10 million.
Yes.
After June 1, I think it's $1 million.
Yes.
I believe. And obviously the contract's built to show, because all the jobs are done by June 1. This is to show I'm invested, right?
Yeah.
I'm not just coming here to hang until an NFL job opens in a month and I'm going to leave. But contract hasn't been signed.
Yes.
It's just very interesting that the contract hasn't been signed.
It is, and this will keep people's eyebrows raised until something gets put to paper. And look, if you had to ask me right now what I feel like he's going to do, I think he's going to stay.
So do I.
I think he's going to hang out at North Carolina. Is that going to be for the long term? Maybe, maybe not, because a year from now, another NFL job could open and he goes ahead and takes that. But I think he does want to prove himself at the college level.
So I'm with you. I think he coaches North Carolina at least for a year. And Mike Lombardi, his GM, his guy, says no, Bill's not going anywhere and things of that nature. So, but it is interesting that the contract has not been signed. And this bums me out, man. Bob Uecker. Love Bob Uecker.
Just a bit outside.
Yeah. Bob Uecker, 90 years old, the longtime voice of his beloved hometown Milwaukee Brewers, has passed away at the age of 90. And whether you saw Uecker in Major League, you saw Uecker on Mr. Belvedere, you saw Uecker on talk shows telling stories and making jokes about himself, if you saw him in beer commercials, Bob Uecker was phenomenal.
And he's from that generation of announcers, Harry Carey, guys like that became so much bigger outside of the little bubble of, because again, we have hometown announcers for every sport like baseball and basketball and stuff like that, but they don't have this national appeal like Euchre does, like a Harry Carey did, guys like that, Vin Scully, out there with the Dodgers, that everybody knows whether you're a fan of that team or not.
Euchre was great. When he was on talk shows and when he first kind of popped, and he would tell stories on the different, and they were hilarious. I mean, there's one thing I read and I forgot about. His biggest moment as a player, he hit a home run off of Sandy Koufax.
Uh-huh.
And after they both retired, he would constantly go to Koufax and apologize for accidentally hitting a home run.
That's great.
All right, so Bob Euchre, unfortunately passing away at the age of 90. All right, if you're on hold, we're going to get to you. Also, our Firehouse subtext, the hour is next. 803-404-6100 is the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Dare here on The Game.
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed. Ball 4. Ball 8. Low, and Vaughn has walked the bases loaded on 12 straight pitches.
Is there any sports commentary quote that gets used more by the general public than just a bet outside? Because whether you're watching a game, whether you're playing a game with your friends or whatever, anything in reference to that, you say just a bet outside, right?
Well, you do it like if you were like, let's say I try to throw like paper in the basket every now and then.
Yeah.
If I miss like by 10 feet, just a bit outside.
You don't even have to have seen Major League to know that's just a thing that people say, right?
Right. Yep.
Like, and that's not, of course, what his legacy is built around.
No.
But that's something that's going to continue forever.
Oh, yeah. Bob Uecker, unfortunately, passing away at the age of 90. That came out earlier today. So we're just honoring Bob Uecker with a little Major League. All right, Firehouse subtext on 803-404-6100. What do you got, man?
Nameless texter, that team looked like a high school basketball team in the first half. Sloppy play, all turnovers. It was like we could not pass the ball to each other. We need to be a better shooting team. I know it's going to be a long season after North Florida lost. Team needs to gain confidence in their shot and play more physical.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and yes in a lot of ways. Excellent.
No lies detected.
Did that text come from Lamont Paris?
It's an 803 number, so I don't know if they gave him an updated cell phone when he got here, but they've never texted us before.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, I mean, look, I know you don't have a natural point guard on this team. It really, Thomas, before Thomas got hurt, was he better? Like, was he better as a point guard than the guys you're seeing now? Yeah, but was he a true point guard? No. He was a combo guard. He wasn't a true point guard. Now, could somebody on this team develop more point guard instinct as the year goes on? Maybe. Get better at the role of being a point guard? Maybe. Jacoby Wright's kind of a combo. He's not really a true point. Really, Jacoby Wright's strengths are in other areas, not really running your offense. Morris, he's not a point guard either. Cam Scott, remember they're talking about maybe we can develop Cam Scott into a point guard as the year goes along. Right now you want Cam Scott just to develop this thing called confidence.
Yeah.
That's really what you want right now from Cam Scott. So you don't have a point guard on this roster. And that's an issue. But that wasn't the only issue last night with the basketball. There was a lot of people that were very sloppy with the Orange last night. There was just no doubt.
Yeah. And again, it wasn't just them stealing it from your hands. It was bad dribbles, bad passes. It just looked, I keep going back to the word clunky, and we talked about that kind of in reference to the offense as a whole, but just your ball handling last night was extremely clunky. And again, as insane as it is, you still had an opportunity to win the game in the end, and your fundamentals once again let you down.
You couldn't close it out. You could, despite all of the issues we've discussed so far this year, you could still be 2-2 in the league if you could have finished the business.
Yeah. And again, we wouldn't say the team's perfect by any means, especially if you still turn the ball over 25 times last night. We say, okay, they're still finding ways to win. Because that's the thing. Good teams can play a bad game and still find a way to eke it out. And Carolina has played two very tight games. And again, Auburn's a much better team than Vanderbilt is, but you couldn't close it out at the very end when it matters to get the points that you needed, the buckets that you needed to win those games, which is why you're now sitting at 0-4. And I imagine, I know we've kind of been talking about this off and on all day, a large amount of people in this fan base are going to be like, I'm good. Baseball's a month away. Women's team's playing well, but I'll save a couple hours on Saturdays and Wednesday nights of not watching the men's team anymore.
All right, so to that, our Twitter poll for the day, Twitter X at 1075 The Game. Poll question of the day. After the loss to Vandy, how much optimism do you have with the men's basketball team for the rest of the season? Can still turn it around. Hanging in there. Hanging in there, have hope. Losing interest, on to baseball season. Right now, 37% say on to baseball season. 30% are losing interest, 30% hanging in there, have hope still. Only 4% believe you can turn it around.
And you're not wrong for thinking that.
No, I get it totally. I mean, right now we just put this up, 81 votes in the first hour, about almost 500 views. So thank you very much for your participation. Like always, we appreciate you. look, it's tough to talk someone out of, I'm out, man. You don't want people to check out. You want them to stay engaged and involved. You want CLA to stay packed. I mean, but you're 0-4. 2 of those 4 losses were blowouts, and the other 2, you had opportunities and couldn't finish the deal. You got 2 injuries to your starting 5. You're really digging into your depth to where you're thin. And so right now, if someone goes, well, okay, looks like this is going to be ugly.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to go, no, hold on for a minute. Don't go crazy. So we'll see. But we'll keep you updated on our Twitter X poll of the day, and we appreciate the Firehouse Subtext the hour, like always, at 803-404-6100. Halftime show, football, more football next on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Ayer. Football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on The Game. Just to get you caught up in case you have not heard or read, Trey Wallace, Penn State wide receiver, second leading pass catcher on the Nittany Lions this past season, in the transfer portal, has made Columbia, South Carolina one of his visits, along with Texas A&M, Louisville, and North Carolina. We'll see where that goes. Would be a nice get for the Gamecocks if they could snag Wallace out of the portal. So we'll see where that goes. So we've yapped about that earlier in the show today. Also, we'll get back into the men's basketball loss at Vandy and the women off in Tuscaloosa taking on Bama. We'll get back to that in the show as well. As we do football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Very interesting. We haven't gotten to this yet, Tyler, but really interesting post came out, I guess, late last week about the future of what college football could look like.
Yep.
Basically, and the NCAA is on board with this, basically the conference is taking control.
Yeah, and this is something that we've talked about in a general sense for a long time, that the leagues look at obviously the power that college football yields and could say, maybe we'll just go off and do our own thing. Because again, I mean, right now, specifically talking about college football, the NCAA does not preside over your championship format. That is the college football playoff is its own thing. It's not an NCAA Division I FBS championship. So you already kind of been doing this yourself anyway. They're just looking for more complete control, it seems like.
Yeah, basically the power conferences, they're called the Autonomy 4, for lack of a better term. We
is
call
that
them
not
the power.
Jay's favorite?
He loves that. Jay loves
word to
that.
use.
He's like, he'll say Autonomy 4, and I go, let me look that up. I'm not that smart.
Yeah, Power 4. No, Autonomy 4.
It's
Power
different.
4. It's different. Sure, Jay.
Power conferences, basically they're looking for more control, and they're forming a proposal to remake the NCAA, the governance, or basically what the NCAA does regarding athletics. Ross Dellinger, I love Ross Dellinger. He gets like all sorts of documents he shouldn't get a hold of. Ross is connected, man. Does he meet a guy like in a garage somewhere, like Deep Throat?
Did you ever see Sesame Street where they have the guy in the trench coat that sells, I think it's letters?
Yeah, that's Ross Dellinger.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's got, hey, those documents from the latest NCAA meetings or
I got them right here for you, Ross.
conference commissioners met in Birmingham this past week. Here's the transcript.
I'm going to lay it on the hood of that car over there. Just pick it up after I walk away.
Exactly. You know, he gets the dirty details.
He does.
We appreciate him for it.
It's considered a working document. Does not have full approval, but it would allow the 4 power conferences to manage postseason championships, like the NCAA tournament.
And that's the big holdup on this for a lot of people. It's like, well, the NCAA tournament, obviously controlled by the NCAA, that's the big moneymaker for basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you restructure this where you're not, by the way, with the women's tournament just approved paying the teams in it, by the way, how can you restructure this where the conferences are in control and you're not losing money by changing this into whatever it's going to become with that tournament?
Well, yeah, I mean, the big moneymaker for the NCAA, because again, the NCAA doesn't control the college football playoff, but the NCAA tournament is a $1 billion moneymaker for the NCAA. So how are you going to handle that? That's the big roadblock in all this.
Yeah.
Because, look, the NCAA has lost control of college football. They know that. I guess the one thing, because, again, the more control the Power Four get, the less any of the mid-majors or the Group of Five are going to get.
Oh, yeah. No, that they will happily toss them to the curb.
So, and we always look at it regarding college football. And right now you have one seat at the table. You might get two if you're lucky.
You are lucky to have that.
And you might not have that once this thing gets restructured again.
That's only guaranteed for one more year.
Yep.
By 2026, that could be gone.
And that's the fear of the Group of Five or the mid-majors is once this thing gets restructured, you're going to get, your seat at the table is going to get pulled out from under you, and then you're going to be sitting on the floor.
That's like we talk about this proposal to expand the current NCAA tournament to 72 or 96 or whatever it may be, and that doesn't mean you're suddenly going to get a bunch of other mid-majors that maybe they were undefeated in conference play but lost their conference championship, and they're going to get one of those bids. No, it's going to go to the subpar teams of the SEC. We're just kind of reference here. Vanderbilt doesn't look like a team that's going to make the NCAA tournament, but in an expanded field, they'd probably be in if they, end up going, 8-10 in conference play or 7-11. Like, we'll let them in because again, that is
18 and 14 on the year.
That is a brand that has a good following in a major media market in Nashville. That's going to bring more eyes to the product, and that's what at the end of the day, it all boils down, as most things do, to the almighty dollar. Does it make us more money? Which is the question. Anytime a rule change or something like this is on the table, the question of does this make us more money is always the first thing you have to answer.
I got taught a long time ago, follow the money.
Of course.
Follow the money. And with this, the more, like the SEC, the more Vanderbilts you get in, the more money you get as a conference.
Of course.
So why do you want to say, hey, let's expand the conference so the MAC can get more teams in the NCAA tournament or the Big Sky?
I'm sorry, this isn't for Iona to get an extra spot in the tournament.
No. And my biggest beef, when someone always says, well, only a small percentage of teams get in the NCAA tournament when you look at over 300 schools, I go, yeah, but break down for me the amount of power conference schools that get in compared to the non-power four. And the thing is, take away the auto bids.
Yeah.
How many mid-majors are getting at-large spots?
And that's probably what this will come down to, is they'd say, well, you know what? We're not going to have AQs. We might, they might take a cluster of, we'll take 5 or 8 mid-major teams that we deem, hey, here comes a committee, by the way. We'll get a committee of people.
The mid-major committee.
To decide who the best 5 to 8 mid-major teams in. We'll give you the lowest seeds. Good luck.
And that ruins the fabric of what makes the NCAA tournament special.
Yes.
And you're going to basically rip it to shreds over money because that's all you care about.
And you know what? We're sick enough to watch it.
Yeah, we will, even though that's the sad part. Yes, you will be ruining it. You'll be ruining this tournament. What makes it special?
The ruin the magic of what makes March fun.
But we'll still watch it.
We'll still watch it. You're essentially stripping away the definition of Cinderella changes because instead of it being St. Peter's, a team that most people didn't know existed before 2 years ago and the run they went on to the Elite Eight. Now it's going to be that Vanderbilt team that wasn't good in conference play that just catches fire in March and goes on a run.
That's not Cinderella.
No.
I'll give you an example. VCU went from the play-in round to the Final Four. We remember that.
Sure.
Wow, it was special. It was Cinderella. It was awesome. UCLA went from the play-in round to the Final Four. Do we look at that as a Cinderella deal?
If you went to Greg Sankey amidst all this and said, Greg, you're ruining Cinderellas in March Madness. I don't care.
Yeah, you know what I'm not ruining?
Money.
A bank account.
Guess how much more money this is making for the conference and subsequently myself.
My job as the SEC commissioner is to do what's best for the SEC.
And him, Petiti, Yormark, Phillips, and the ACC, that is their sole purpose, is to make the conference as much money as possible.
Right.
And if they have to step on the throats of the little guys to do it, they're going to do it.
And that's the point. They don't care if they ruin what we as fans think is special because they know we're a bunch of dopes and we'll watch it anyway.
Because we are loyal to our schools, our conference. And you can be the biggest purist of the NCAA tournament or whatever. If South Carolina is in a 96-team tournament that's primarily made up of power schools, you're going to watch because they're in.
Already. You're going to want your mediocre Power 4 school that you love in ahead of the maybe more deserving mid-major.
That's the thing is you're going to get into the debate of, okay, well, it's South Carolina. It's, insert 3 or 4 mid-major teams here that won their conference or whatever. Well, we played a tougher schedule. We played against the SEC. We did this. We should be in over those guys. So, again, depending on where you're looking at this from, it's going to twist your narrative.
Absolutely. But the thing that makes the NCAA tournament so different is the Cinderella that makes the deep run.
Yes.
And the Power Four will be taking those opportunities away if they can get away with it, and they will get away with it. And that's the sad part.
And I imagine as well, there'll probably be something of, hey, let's try and get games on campus, which the women's tournament does do for the first two rounds. But the men's tournament is historically played at neutral sites all the way through, which, to be honest, that kind of benefits the underdog, right? Because you're not having to go to Tennessee. You're not having to go to Duke. You're not having to go to Kentucky and play, in front of Big Blue Nation. They travel, obviously, but you're playing the game in Cleveland, Ohio, or you're playing the game in Greenville or whatever it may be. And I would think, again, I don't know, they're probably going to try and get stuff on campus too.
Yeah, and going back to football, your one little sliver of hope, which is totally different than basketball, is it could conceivably go by the wayside because, again, the SEC doesn't care about the Mountain West, and neither does the Big Ten, neither does the Big 12, neither does the ACC.
It was vitally important to me that Boise State made a statement this year, which, to a degree, by getting one of the top 4 seeds, as convoluted as the seeding process seemed to be for the first 12-team playoff, they went out there, and I know they made it a 3-point game at one point. Nobody thought they were going to beat Penn State.
No.
But in terms of having an argument for all these Group of 5 schools, you needed Boise State to probably win that game and then have a compelling game against whoever in the semifinals. Say, hey, look, we showed we belong. Because the Fiesta Bowl really just kind of proved to everybody what we already thought. Like, yeah, Penn State's not the best team, but they're a lot better than Boise State.
Yeah, eventually the fact that Penn State is just better on paper is going to wear down Boise State. That's what it did. It was a 17-14 game. Penn State then went down the field, made 24-14. Then Boise State started handing the ball off to Penn State, and the thing went sideways. And that's just the idea. A Group of 5 school typically is going to have a very difficult time competing with a Power 4 team. Even like we said with Penn State, yeah, they got the semis, but no one looks at Penn State as one of the 4 best teams in America.
I think the Group of 5, and again, we'll just do this for the college football playoff. I think the Group of 5 could potentially hold a spot knowing that they're going to get the number 1 seed, and that'll be viewed if buys go away. Let's say we go to 16 teams. The number 1 seed will get to draw a Group of 5 team, the best Group of 5 team, so they can beat them by 20 points and have an easier path into the second round.
And
that may be the way they hang on.
Well, remember, we sat around saying, okay, who's got the easiest path? Penn State.
Yeah, 1,000%.
They had SMU, who just came out of the Group of 5 to go to the ACC, and Boise State.
Yep.
And we were unfortunately proven right. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Joel Klatt kind of taking responsibility in some ways for the resurgence of Ohio State's offense. We'll get to this next. It is the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Dare. We go till 3 on the game. Dave. I'm going to call for cut 15. Cut 15. Halftime show, football, and more football. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. David Ayer keeping us on the air. Tyler Head, Terry Ford. We go till 3. All right, so Joel Klatt. Joel Klatt's okay. There's a lot of people who roll their eyes on Joel Klatt, especially SEC folks, because Joel Klatt likes to, Joel Klatt and Danny Cannell, it's like Braveheart.
Sure.
They're running down the hill on their kilts coming at the SEC every day, right?
Yeah, well, he does get paid a lot of money to broadcast the big game of the Big Ten every single week on Big Noon Saturday next to Gus Johnson as he flails and screams at everything that happens in front of him.
And so if I'm Joel Klatt, I look at my direct deposit, I know whose name is on it.
Yep.
So I'm coming after the SEC.
We need him, Cannell, and Feinbaum all in one room together and just let them debate for an hour.
So Joel Klatt was on, I forget what podcast. Oh, the Andy and Ari podcast on 3. He said, Joel Klatt, that he had conversations with members of the Ohio State coaching staff where he argued that they needed to throw the ball more to Jeremiah Smith. Quote from Klatt, didn't surprise me as much as like a confirmation of the things I thought were there. Probably TMI here, but there were arguments that I had with possibly members of the staff. Rather than going down that rabbit hole, I will tell you. At that point, Andy Staples cut in and said that arguments were overthrowing to Smith more than they had at times during the regular season, only for Klatt to confirm that's what he was talking about, correct. So basically, Joel Klatt has been the key to this run by Ohio State.
Yeah, I know a guy that gave Steve Jobs the idea for the iPhone in line at Walmart.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right. Well, the thing, too, is like the guy that looked at Bill Gates and said, hey, I got a really good idea, Billy. And there, it's just, look, I guess for me, whenever someone is breaking their arm to pat themselves on the back, not to say Joel Klatt's not telling the truth. He might be for all I know. But it's almost like...
To put it that way, I told them that they need to throw the ball more.
I had arguments with them.
I had arguments with them.
Because they were pushing back on me. No, we don't want to throw the ball to that freak freshman wide receiver that nobody can cover.
Now, yes, for the Michigan game, they neglected to feature their best weapons.
I agree.
Depending on who you listen to, a lot of people think that was Ryan Day just trying to prove that he could beat Michigan at their own game. Obviously, ended up backfiring. But I think that staff's been well aware of Jeremiah Smith's talent this entire year.
I can't believe that they would go like this. No, Joel, we're not throwing the ball to him. We care more about this running game. But look, again, I don't know. Maybe Joel Klatt did have them see the light. But I just think it's kind of funny when you do like that kind of riff.
So, have you ever seen the meme of the guy in the? It's a cartoon. He's looking at himself in the mirror and says, "It's not about you, but go in there and make it about you." Doesn't this kind of fall on the same lines? Like, because again, they're previewing the national championship game and obviously talking about how great of a player that Jeremiah Smith is and probably the role that he's going to play in that game. It's like, wait a minute, what if I took credit for his ascension? By the way. Let's just go. And again, he had one catch against Texas, which
Texas
they did a good
nice job of bracketing him and doubling him. And
throughout the entire season, here are the catches he had per game: 6, 5, 3, 5, 4, 9, 3, 4, 6, 4, 3, 5, 6, 7. There's not exactly a lull in there.
Right.
Of like, oh, well, suddenly they're just not throwing the ball anymore. Like, no, he's been consistently getting targets the entire season. Even in the Michigan game, he got 5 catches in that game and only went for 35 yards.
But they did target him.
They did target him.
So, yeah, I do. I always find it funny when someone goes, let me tell you what I did. I'm going to make this whole thing about me and what I've done. Did I ever tell you about me? And look, maybe if I had a chance, because I just saw this. I didn't get a chance to listen to it.
That's a good headline. Joel Klatt takes credit for Jeremiah Smith's ascension in the offense.
It's very interesting. So anyway, if you're an Ohio State fan, thank Joel Klatt for turning around. And Jeremiah Smith probably should give him a portion of his NFL signing bonus.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, that's how this works.
All right, so this is something that we know, but it's just we look at it a little bit more, just how the transfer portal has affected quarterbacking and really affect college football when you see Riley Leonard and Will Howard quarterbacking in the national championship game. You know, Quinn Ewers technically was a transfer portal guy coming back to Texas after leaving Texas.
Yep.
Only one guy, Drew Aller, was not a transfer portal guy out of the Final Four. And we see it everywhere. I mean, obviously, South Carolina's had both sides. You had Spencer Rattler come through the portal, and now you have Lenora Sellers, who's homegrown. But it is the world you live in college football when it comes to quarterbacking now. And look, when Lenora Sellers is done, if next year is as great as a lot of folks think it's going to be, Lenora Sellers could be rolling off to the NFL draft, and then Aaron Nolan, who came in through the portal, might be your starting quarterback, possibly.
Or somebody else from the portal
could be
comes
your
in and
starting
takes the job.
quarterback.
And the nature of the quarterback position, where on most teams only one guy's seeing the field for 95% of the snaps outside of situations and packages, if you're not good enough to beat the start, and look, there's a lot of guys, that are really good. They're just behind a really good player. Mm-hmm. So you're only guilty of not being better than somebody that's potentially a first-round draft pick. Mm-hmm. You say, well, I got to go prove myself. So that's why you see so many of these 4- and 5-star guys that spend a year on a campus somewhere, Southern Cal, UCLA, whatever it may be, and then try their hand somewhere else, or Ohio State, or whatever it may be, because you only get so many opportunities to prove yourself as a quarterback that you got to find playing time.
Yeah, and, when you look, like the Heisman, Travis Hunter through the transfer portal.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels, transfer portal. Caleb Williams, transfer portal. The last, 3 Heisman winners are all transfer portal guys. It's just the way this thing is going. And then you have back-to-back Bama. Before that, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray through the portal. Baker Mayfield transferred. So you have a lot. This is the way of this game. One of the biggest stories this year was Cam Ward, who transferred into Miami, coming from Washington State. This was Cam Ward's third school.
Yep.
This is just where it is now. Whether it's the Heisman Trophy, whether it's quarterbacking teams to big successful seasons, that's the world. And a lot of money's being spent, by the way, to get these quarterbacks through the portal. And because, again, the quarterback, if you have a quarterback, you have a chance.
Yeah. No,
and that's where it's at.
You rarely get very far in football without a competent quarterback. Now, some quarterbacks are better than others. Some quarterbacks have different strengths than others. But if your quarterback is not good and he can't get the ball to your playmakers or whatever it may be, you're not going to go very far.
Now, it's interesting, going into next year in the SEC, the quarterbacks off the top of my head we look at Lenora Sellers, we look at Nussmeier, we look at Nico, we look at DJ in Florida. They're all guys that the old-fashioned way, right?
Yes.
They're all pulled through high school.
I'm sure Nussmeier had a lot of opportunities to go elsewhere, sit behind Jaden Daniels, but he stayed.
Yep, he stayed. So we're going to see a little of an anomaly in the SEC with a lot of these quarterbacks who people think are going to, like, if you're putting the pecking order in for next year, most of your pecking order is guys who came through the old-fashioned way.
At the very top, but again, the league is going to be full of plenty of guys transferring. We had a good laugh yesterday. Zach Calzada making his return at Kentucky after, he spent 12 years at A&M and, was there backing up Johnny Manziel back in 2012.
Yep. Calzada is 37 years old. And he's a father of 4. I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of the College Football Playoff Championship game, Lou Holtz talking about, where he's going with this whole thing. Here's Lou Holtz, cut 15, Dave.
People think I'm anti-Ohio State. Nothing could be further from the truth. I was raised in the state of Ohio. I went to college at Kent State in Ohio. Our motto, we can't read, we can't write, but we are Kent State. I coached at Ohio State under Woody Hayes. We won the national championship. There's no coach that's had a greater influence on my philosophy and my belief as a coach than Woody Hayes. So I love Ohio State. It's just that they have a statue of me at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a very special place. As I would say to our team all the time, remember, man, we're Notre Dame and they ain't. And I use the word ain't for emphasis, not to illustrate the caliber of education I received at Kent State University. So thank you for watching me. Let's hope I'm right.
I have a statue in Notre Dame.
He's not wrong. I mean, again,
he's not.
National champion there, and kind of the end of Notre Dame's heyday, so to speak, was when he left.
Yeah. and they stumbled around a lot. Brian Kelly, got into the college football playoff once and played for the BCS national championship once.
But in all those games, they proved they did not belong, with the best of the best in college football.
And the ironic part, that's why Brian Kelly left, to go to a place where he thought he could compete for a championship. And the guy that replaced him, who was his defensive coordinator, is playing for a national championship.
And won
ironically.
2 of those games that Brian Kelly could not win in a week.
Exactly. Just, it's interesting. But yeah, of course, Lou Holtz is going to pick Notre Dame, root for Notre Dame. Duh. Anybody that gets annoyed about that, really?
I imagine Ryan Day's blood's just boiling right now.
Wouldn't it be great if Lou went, and by the way, Ryan Day, screw you.
Well, you saw what he tweeted, right?
Yeah.
That, if Notre Dame loses, it's only to help Ryan Day's job security.
Yes. So good. I love Ryan Day going after Lou Holtz. Tough guy.
I want to know where Lou Holtz is right now.
I still say this. I think Lou's feisty enough to take him.
He'd get a swing in.
Absolutely.
He wouldn't go down without a fight.
All right, later today on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG, women's college basketball, the number 2 ranked Gamecocks taking on Alabama. Again, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip on 98.5 WOMG. And tomorrow we're going to hang out all day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Pro Swing Golf on Forest Drive, 4708 Forest Drive in Columbia to be exact. They've been kind of soft launching and soft opening over at Pro Swing. We're going to have the big indoor tournament at the end of the month. We're going to have some fun over there. Come hang out, say hey at Pro Swing. Again, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. All of our shows tomorrow at 4708 Forest Drive in Columbia. We'll jump back in. More football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. The latest in the NFL coaching rumors and carousel and whispers and dirt. That is next here on The Game.
Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Ed and Terry Ford along with you here on your Thursday on the game. So Terry said tomorrow, going to be out at Pro Swing's new location on Forest Drive all day long, and we'll be doing plenty of previewing, obviously, Monday night's national championship game between Ohio State and Notre Dame, as well as talking about the NFL playoffs, getting you set for what is going to be the divisional round this weekend. And one of the games that everybody's looking forward to, it'll be the cap of the weekend on Sunday night at 6:30. Baltimore going on the road, take on the Buffalo Bills, where, to the surprise of no one, Buffalo, New York, on a late Sunday in January. It's going to be pretty cold. Cut number 14 here, Dave. Lamar Jackson yesterday talking to the media about how he plans on preparing for those cold elements.
Hopefully we have some heaters on the sideline, bigger jacket, probably. I got to talk to Kaneko to see what he got going on. Equipment guys, they pretty much do a great job though, so we should be good.
But you don't do gloves under any circumstances.
No, I tried it in practice. I was horrible. Leave that up to Teddy, two gloves, Teddy Bridgewater.
All the joking aside, it seems like you do handle the cold weather pretty well. I mean, being a Florida guy and everything. Yeah,
man, I'm trying to win, so it really don't matter. I can't go into a game and be like, man, it's too cold. I can't make things happen. You know, Coach them probably send me home. Eric them be probably trying to come, have me go upstairs and talk to him and stuff. So I got to lock in the cold.
Regardless of how cold it's going to be and looking at the temperature, it's projected to be 18 degrees, and the sun will be down at that point in time in Buffalo, New York. So plenty chilly, and I will certainly enjoy watching this game from the comfort of my nice, warm living room here in South Carolina. But so much excitement around this matchup. And, our guy Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central is a huge Buffalo Bills fan. And, I texted him after they won handily on over the weekend against the Denver Broncos that, hey, another edition of Lamar and Josh Allen to play for the right to potentially play Kansas City in the AFC Championship game the following weekend. And again, everybody very much in tuned what this game is going to be with two of the best young quarterbacks in the league, both guys playing at an extremely high level. And when you look at Kansas City this year, and again, they went 15-2, could have gone probably 16-1 if their starters would have played in the final game of the regular season. They look perhaps as vulnerable as ever. Defense is good. Offense, not great. Patrick Mahomes has hit his stride here these last couple games, but compared to years past, Kansas City not firing on all cylinders offensively as they have been before. It seems like if a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson's ever going to get over the Patrick Mahomes hump, and they themselves do still have to get past C.J. Stroud and Houston on Saturday as well, this seems like the year. So the winner of this game on Sunday is potentially in the prime spot to finally be able to slay the dragon that is the Chiefs and get to the Super Bowl.
Well, the interesting part, and you're right, and to focus on this game with Baltimore and Buffalo, I feel like it's the who has the ball last game.
It might be.
It feels like one of those.
35-31. Here's Lamar, 2-minute drive, see if you can get it done.
Yeah, and it's got that look to it. Here's Lamar Jackson. By the way, it's going to be cold in Buffalo.
Yeah, I played that.
Did you play it?
I did play that. He said he's not a fan of gloves. He called Teddy Bridgewater Teddy Two Gloves, but he said that's not his game. And he wears the head sock and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you get the gigantic coat on the sideline like you're a medieval king in between drives.
Oh, Lamar has a coat guy.
Yeah. Oh, every quarterback does.
Yeah, it's so funny that as soon as the series is over and they're coming off the field, the coat guy comes running over.
I would like to see how warm that is just once, because the other thing's like 18 layers thick.
Oh yeah.
They got the heated benches now. Like, it's not a balmy 80 degrees, but you're comfortable on the sidelines, especially as a quarterback.
Oh, you mean like Len Dawson of the Kansas City Chiefs in that picture we looked at yesterday? You think they had nice heated seats?
Well, the funny thing about some of those old photos, they used to just set fire in a bucket
and
on the sidelines.
Around the bucket, yeah.
And you have to go stand around the bucket and hope nobody knocked it over.
Oh,
or hey, our left guard's on fire. Yeah, he stepped in the bucket.
Roll him around a little bit.
No, he's actually warming him up. He's fine.
One of the stories that go back to the old days when Dallas and Green Bay played that iconic 1967 NFC Championship game. There were guys getting frostbite. Guys, thought they could lose fingers.
Yeah.
That's not going on today. No, that's not.
Now, if you're a fan in the stands, that's a different story.
But usually you're well lubricated to where you're not feeling it anyway.
I don't know. That shirtless guy at Kansas City, I think, lost a couple fingers last year.
This is ridiculous. But again, that guy is so heated up from the inside. He's not
aware of how cold
no
it is.
idea. But going back to this game, look, Baltimore's defense, since they moved Kyle Hamilton back to free safety, has been the best defense in the game. Buffalo's defense that got run over by the Ravens earlier this year in Baltimore is better than it was earlier in the year. But these two offenses have been operating at such a high level. It's hard for me to go, well, we get a low-scoring slobber knocker. Could the weather affect it? Of course it could, because it's going to be really cold in Buffalo. But it feels like, to what you were saying, you look at Kansas City, and yes, their record is ridiculous, but they've won a lot of one-score games. Seems like the football gods and the tinfoil helmet people are thinking Kansas City is getting help that other teams don't.
They've won in a lot of ways this year.
And they do look vulnerable. They really do. And I'll put it to a point farther. You see what how the Texans played last weekend?
Phenomenally.
If their edge pass rushers are bringing that kind of heat, Anderson and Hunter, remember Holmes had the ankle.
Yeah.
The offensive line has had trouble I know they moved Joe Thuney out to tackle because they were having so much trouble with the tackles protecting Mahomes.
Yeah.
We could see something really interesting this weekend in Kansas City. Just saying.
Yeah, no, it's not a foregone conclusion they're going to get past it, but it's really funny. Let's say Stroud and the Texans end up beating the Chiefs and they play, the Bills or the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, and let's say Lamar goes on and wins the Super Bowl. There's going to be the people say, well, yeah, didn't go through
Mahomes.
Kansas City to do it.
Absolutely.
So how quality is that Super Bowl at the end of the day? And again, it's ridiculous, but people are going to say that.
Oh, sure. And I've always said that, it's not the Bills or the Ravens' fault that the Chiefs couldn't get there.
It's not. Again,
can't blame them.
And again, this is a Chiefs team that if they played their starters in the last week, probably would have gone 16-1. Mm-hmm. Their one legitimate loss was to Buffalo by a pretty convincing margin at that, but they still found ways to win. And there's something to be said. And again, their stars haven't played in like a month. They last played on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So how rusty are they going to be compared to a team that just played last week?
Yeah, I mean, look, am I picking Houston to beat Kansas City? No, not at all. I am not going to. I'm going to pick Kansas City till they get beat. That's where I'm at.
You can't bet against them till they show you otherwise.
Because they convinced me last year. Because all we said going into last year's playoffs, they always do it in the cozy confines of Arrowhead. Go do it on the road. Guess who did it on the road?
Yeah, Kansas City.
Yeah, they went through Buffalo and Baltimore and won the Super Bowl. So I'm not betting against them. I'm not picking against them until they lose a game. But would I be surprised if they don't make it out of the AFC? Of course not. I think Buffalo's good. I think Baltimore's good. Again, if the Texans are firing on all cylinders like they did last weekend, they could scare the bejesus out of Kansas City.
Sure.
Kansas City might be the least impressive two-loss team you'll ever see, but guess what? They find a way to win.
And they've got a Hall of Fame head coach.
And
they've got a Hall of Fame quarterback. They got a Hall of Fame They've got the pieces there that, who knows, maybe that switch flips in January like it has in years past, and they go on just a tear this next
And by
month.
the way, they got a Hall of Fame pass rusher.
That helps too.
Yeah, they still have dudes. Even though they might be not as duty as they've been in previous years, they still got dudes.
They have gotten they are getting the benefit of the doubt, like every Patriots team that made the Super Bowl with Bill Belichick, Tom Brady. Whether they were good or average that year, it's the Patriots in the playoffs. Going to be tough to beat.
Because people can say what they want and roll their eyes, but when you've built a culture the way Kansas City has, and when you've been there, done that as many times as Kansas City has, you walk into a football game and you say, okay, who wants to be the guy to make the play today?
You're the dragon everyone's trying to slay.
And I say this all the time. It might be the fourth string DB who's a gunner on special teams who goes down and forces the fumble that changes the game. It might be, because of, somebody's hurt for a minute or they're tired and need to come out, some backup linebacker tips a ball in the air and picks off a pass, and that's how they end up getting you. But they get you. All right. 803-404-6100 Firehouse Sub text the hour next, and the coaching carousel in the NFL. It's all coming up on the halftime show on The Game. We'll get to our Firehouse Sub Text the hour here in just a second. 803-404-6100 here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, appreciate you hanging out with us. David Dare also here, steering the ship as we roll till 3. The first annual Pro Swing Golf Classic is coming. We'll talk more about that tomorrow in detail as we are live from Pro Swing. 4708 Forest Drive in Columbia from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The entire day at Pro Swing. It's a 3-day event, is the Golf Classic. It starts on January 30th and runs to February 1st, Thursday to Saturday. $150 to register for a 2-man team. Bookings available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Food included from Bonefish. You can win $1,000 for first place, $750 for second, $500 for third. Plus, we'll be drawing Gamecock baseball season tickets. You can call Pro Swing 803-528-1617. All right, before we get to the Firehouse Subtext, the hour, the carousel in the NFL is getting interesting. Mike McCarthy interviewing in Chicago. Deion Sanders, Jerry Jones, smoke keeps going. I don't believe that's going to happen. The more important one there is the Cowboys have asked permission to interview Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, who I think will end up being the head coach of the Cowboys.
Yeah, Jerry's going to pull out those puppet strings and just kind of see how well they attach to his arms and legs and all that kind of stuff and say, oh, you're a perfect fit. Let's do this.
It will fit perfectly because that's what Jerry at the end of the day is looking for.
Well, you're more of a marionette around here as opposed to being a head coach, Kellen.
Yeah, can you see Jerry trying to put the Muppet strings on Deion?
Yep.
Yeah, that would work. I think this is going to be a fun little dance they'll do, but at the end of the day, I believe Kellen Moore's the head coach.
Oh, sure. Look, he falls right into the category of yes man, like Jason Garrett, like Mike McCarthy.
Yep, Dave
Not going to be a lot of pushback.
Whole crew.
He'll be thrilled to be coaching the Dallas freaking Cowboys.
Chan Gailey, we can go through the whole list.
Yeah, the whole thing.
This is interesting. I'm going to give you we'll get to the text of the hour. I'm going to give you 2 resumes of head coaches. 18 seasons for both. 12 playoff appearances for both. One has 8 division titles, one has 7. One's playoff record is 11-11. One's playoff record is 8-11. One's Super Bowl record's 1-0. One's Super Bowl record is 1-1. One's Mike Tomlin. The other's Mike McCarthy. Look, if I'm picking which one, I'd take Tomlin personally.
Sure.
I would. But the point is that, Tomlin has been to one extra Super Bowl and lost that one to Green Bay.
Funny enough to Mike McCarthy.
Yes. But I guess what I'm saying is this isn't to diss Mike Tomlin, but it's to say I think I don't know, maybe because I don't know what it is, but we look at Mike McCarthy as a level below Mike Tomlin. We look at Mike McCarthy as, for some reason, we don't look at him as a guy that's won a Super Bowl as a head coach and just came off of 36 wins in 3 seasons before this past year and has, I forget how many double-digit win seasons. He has like 7 or 8. He is right behind, he's like 5th or 6th in double-digit win seasons all time as a head coach.
Yeah, listen, when it comes to Mike McCarthy, most people, their first thought is not that Super Bowl that they did win over the Steelers. It's the fact they never got to another one
with Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. And again, for all the gaudy numbers you put up and MVP and all that kind of stuff, people look at it and say, how can you not get back to the Super Bowl with this guy? Mm-hmm. And Mike Tomlin, with another great quarterback in his own right, and Ben Roethlisberger, got to 2, 1-1, obviously. And that conversation never really comes up as much, even though it's been 15 years since that happened.
And to be fair, Ben was around a long time after that second trip to the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh couldn't get back.
And was playing at a high level, too.
You had Antonio Brown. You had Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, you had some high-caliber talent.
Look at those great defensive players you had.
Yeah, there are plenty of teams that even the last time they won a playoff game was the 2016 season, so January of 2017, played for the AFC Championship, lost to the Patriots before they won the Super Bowl against the Falcons. Plenty of still good years after that in terms of Roethlisberger before he fell off right there at the end of his career. But again, that doesn't get brought up as much.
I think we look, because we're so prisoners of the moment. And look, I've said this too here in the last couple of days, where our buddy Lee kind of disagree with us and think, Tomlin, we look at the last few years where the Steelers have totally screwed up the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. We look at that last year or two with Ben when obviously the best years were far behind him. And we seem to judge Tomlin as the coach who finds a way to grind out the best of subpar teams, make the playoffs. And yeah, none of these playoff games in the last so many years has he really been favored to win. But then if you look back a bit, it was a while after that second Super Bowl when Tomlin had talented teams that couldn't get there. Sure. We look at McCarthy as a guy that wasted away time with Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott and the talent in Dallas.
Yep.
So it's just very funny how the prisoner of the moment takes us.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting. But that's just the point of maybe but by the way, Mike McCarthy, awful when it comes to game management. Let's get that out of the way now. All right, we'll get our Firehouse Up Text the Hour next, and we'll see what's trending at 2 on the game.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Terry Ford along with you here on your Thursday on the game. We'll get to what's trending at 2 in just a moment. Didn't get a chance to slide in our Firehouse Subs text of the hour, 803-404-6100. We'll talk about Bill Belichick not signing his contract at UNC yet. Nameless texter says, Bill's a total narcissist. UNC can have fun with that.
I do. I think he stays. I think this is just an interesting thing of why he hasn't signed. A lot of times these guys will go because they have there's a document in place. It's just not the official contract.
Of course.
There have been a couple of different coaches who didn't, I'm thinking back because top of my head doesn't work as good as it used to, that this might have been the thing when Mike Price had his thing with the credit card at Alabama because he didn't officially sign his contract
and they
yet.
didn't have to pay him anything because this was like in the spring. I think it comes spring ball, and then that coaching convention was like in May maybe, and then he did what he did, allegedly, and they're like, oh, well, we can fire this guy without owing him a cent.
You haven't signed the deal. There's another instance of it I'm trying to remember where it came out that the coach had not signed the contract yet. And I gotta go, maybe it's me because I've been in the radio business my whole life. The minute they send that sucker over, I'm signing it.
You would think.
I'm pushing to, let's get this thing put together, please. Because, again, not that I don't trust people, but it's just the idea, okay, we agreed upon it, get it to me in writing, we can all sign it, and then we move forward.
Yep.
So it is interesting how the coaching thing goes different.
When you're a coach and you already have bleep you money anyway,
you don't care.
Maybe that kind of stuff's not of the highest priority.
Okay. You're not wrong.
It's one way to look at it.
Oh, God. All right. So that was our Firehouse Sub text, the hour 803-404-6100. We appreciate you jumping in. All right. Back to hoops last night. A frustrating loss for South Carolina, 25 turnovers. Unacceptable. I don't care how good Vanderbilt is getting their hands in the passing lane or slapping at basketballs. It just comes back to sloppiness and carelessness with the rock for South Carolina.
And you, for the most part, did everything else well enough, not perfect, but well enough to still be in a position to win the game. And again, we get back to it. Those final couple of minutes, your fundamentals let you down again.
Yep. The last 4 minutes, you're in position in a one-possession game. Took a few bad shots, missed some free throws, had some turnovers, didn't complete your box out. I mean, there were things that happened at the end that had nothing to do with the turnovers that also helped you lose that game. But that game was yours to win despite 25 turnovers, and you couldn't seal the deal at the end, just like the Auburn game.
Yep.
All right, let's grab a call real quick. 803-404-6100. Chris has been waiting patiently. Chris, we appreciate your patience. You're on the halftime show on the game. How you doing?
Hey, guys. Look up. They got my name wrong, but it don't matter.
Okay. Go ahead.
I tell you, last night I watched the game, and, and I'm on this hope crusade for my Gamecocks men because our women are doing great. Yeah, the game before that told me a lot about this team, and it tells me that we could play with anybody in the country if we play good, smart ball. Because, you can. We have talent. And then last night, I'll be honest with you, after like the 10th turnover, I knew that we wasn't going to win this game. Because these guys, we talk about that pass that Jacoby Wright made. Mm-hmm. That's like emblematic on what they're doing. They're throwing to color. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I know what you're saying.
They're not seeing the big picture. They see white or whatever uniform we're wearing, and that's what they're passing to, a color. And they're not looking at what's around that color. There was no need to make that pass because we wasn't gaining anything, even if he'd have made the pass successful, because our guy was forced to the sideline, and it wasn't like he was streaking down toward the basket and you trying to get the ball in. And, and then we trying to make passes in traffic, and his hands all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And, they can't stress it enough. You're trying to make a bounce pass to a big man.
Yep.
The worst place for a big man to have a ball on the inside is down near the floor. Too many little hands are down there. Nothing good come out of that.
No, you're right.
I mean, yeah, it's like we just made our passing was what killed us. Mm-hmm. We should have blew Vanderbilt off the floor. You know, that's what, if you take away half of those turnovers, and if you gave half of the ones that you took away and we converted that into points, that was an easy win.
Chris, you make some great points. We appreciate it, my man. Thanks. Look, going back to what Chris just said, you throw bounce passes to bigs become littles.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy who's 6'10" now becomes like 3'10" because now he's got to shrink himself to collect that bounce pass and go back up. And there was just so many little things. And Chris was right, too, about the pass. That pass we have spotlighted by Jacoby Wright in, the last 4 minutes, last 6 minutes of the game or whatever it was. Chris, like he's throwing the color, he sees the jersey, he throws it.
Yeah.
But the best point Chris made was it's not like he was streaking down the lane and you were trying to make a pass for a layup or a dunk. That was just a pass across half court near the sideline. So if you do complete that pass, it's not all you're doing is get the ball across half court.
Yeah, it's not setting you up for something to be successful necessarily.
Exactly. So that's a great point, Chris. Thanks for the call. It is. It's all these little things. And look, Elijah did a great breakdown. It's on our YouTube channel, if you want to check it out, at the Game TV Radio, of the Vanderbilt South Carolina game. And part of it was about Vanderbilt. They get their hands in the passing lanes. They slap basketballs. They might not. They're like, their defensive efficiency numbers aren't wow, but if you watch them, that's what they do. And you saw a lot of that last night. And Elijah and I were joking, if goobers like us can watch that and see it,
sure,
Lamont Paris and his staff see it, so it was in the scouting report, right?
Definitely so. And again, the officiating was not great last night, but Vanderbilt saw an area where they could exploit the aggressiveness that they were playing with on both sides of the ball and then push it to that limit, which ended up helping them.
Yeah, and look, there's a couple times like, South Carolina could have been stronger with the ball going to the rack, too. You got to be strong with the ball when you go. When you're going up, you can't be loose. Look, if anybody who's played basketball, you know what I'm talking about. It's like you got to be strong with the ball. You got to have two hands on the ball, strong, and go up because they're slapping at it.
Yeah.
So you got to get stronger with the ball. But it just some of the rhyme or reason of what was done on the court, going back to the Jacoby Wright pass, is like Lamont's got to be sitting on the sideline going, why? Why? Because you scouted it. You saw it when you scouted Vandy. You know what Vandy does. So that's even more of a head scratcher. And just those little moments, those little plays, like, and there was a pass or two that should have been stolen that weren't. My man Morris, who I really like, Ugasuk, I really do. And he had a heck of a game last night. He scored 20. It was a career night offensively, and he made some big shots. But he drove the lane late in the game, and he drove the middle and threw a blind pass back toward the middle of the lane, and he was throwing it for Pringle, but it went to Colin Murray Boyles. And really, Colin Murray Boyles and Pringle weren't spaced well. If they were spaced well, it probably would have gone to a Vanderbilt defender.
Yeah.
But the fact that just because the way the play was shaping up, Colin Murray Boyles and Pringle were kind of close together, so the ball really ended up at Colin Murray Boyles, but the pass was going to Pringle. I mean, he threw a no-look job in the lane behind, which the degree of success for a pass like that,
pretty low.
Yeah. And it's just stuff like that last night. And Chris, and look, we've been saying it, and Chris drove the point home. If you played half as clean, you could have still had 12, 14 turnovers. Still won this basketball game.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt shot 41% from the floor, 19% from three. You out-rebounded them.
Yeah.
You did a lot of things right last night, and you should have won the basketball game.
And they scored 22 points off 25 turnovers, but they got 11 additional shots in that game. And that's the difference, because in the turnovers they had 11 more chances, didn't make all those chances, but it was enough to put them over. Because, again, you had a better field goal percentage than them. We talked about this last night, going into the game yesterday. They were built much like Alabama, where really good inside the arc, not so great outside. And again, they were 4 of 21 from three. You forced them to take enough threes to where it had an effect on the game to where they only scored 66 points. And, the 56 shots inside the paint is about average to what they were doing through the first couple conference games, or particularly the last two that they lost. So defensively, you did what you needed to do in terms of making them shoot from different areas around the court. But again, when you're handing the ball to them and giving them more opportunities, even though the percentage wasn't as good, they took more shots and subsequently made enough to be better than you.
You made 19 field goals, and you turned the ball over 25 times. Think about how many empty trips you had in this basketball game, and you lost by 3.
Yep.
All right, let's get to Lamont Paris. This is cut 4, Dave. Here's the coach after the game saying this was a tough loss to swallow.
Very, very tough loss to swallow. I mean, and particularly when you had, and that was my message at halftime, was that with 16 turnovers, God forbid we have a chance. The basketball god shined on us to make the game only a 7-point game at halftime, guys. Whoa. I'm not even sure if we deserved that, but that's what we got. So we come out in the second half only to turn it over, cut it all the way down to 9 turnovers in the second half for a total of 25. You can't do that. You can't play basketball and win that way. You can't have 2 guys that have 5 turnovers. Yeah. We scored 37 points in the second half on minus the 9 turnovers. So you're getting what you want. At the end of the game, we didn't. We had the ball point blank right around the rim twice and didn't get anything out of it. But,
Yeah, I mean, it's massively, massively frustrating. I mean, think about it. You're a Gamecock fan, you're frustrated. Think about being Lamont Paris.
Oh, God. And again, nobody's absolved from blame because you do have to put in the right game plan, put the right lineup out there. I know you're down 2 starters, but Lamont Paris is not on the court. Lamont Paris is not making these passes. Lamont Paris is not the one turning the ball over.
Right.
And again, for a coach that has showed you what his capabilities are with a good team and a good roster last year, it's got to be driving him crazy to go through these first 4 games conference play and in back-to-back games be in position to win both of them and get let down at the very end, and again just have a disastrous night from a turnover standpoint all day long.
Jacoby Wright, 3 turnovers. Zach Davis, 5 turnovers. Morris Ugasuk, 4 turnovers. Nick Pringle, 3 turnovers. Colin Murray-Boyles, 5 turnovers. It was, I mean, again, you spread it all over, but it wasn't like one dude had 19 of them.
Every person that played for Carolina last night turned the ball over at least once.
Absolutely.
Every single one.
Let's get to Lamont Paris, Dave. Let's get to, let's go with cut 11, the shot clock violation at the end of the game when South Carolina had the ball in their final possession.
Well, again, Nick has the ball right underneath the rim. Right underneath the rim. And we don't get it up to the rim. So because of that, it ends up being a shot clock violation because it got stripped out of his hands, off of his head, and to the out of bounds. So even if it was our ball, it was going to be a shot clock violation. But, I mean, end of the day, you have a good player with the ball, both feet in the paint, with an advantageous position, and then we didn't convert. The play before that was Colin Murray-Boyles in the same position, both feet in the charge arc, under the basket, with an advantage, and it ends up we don't end up getting anything out of that. So those plays end up hurt.
Yeah, they just do. I mean, when you get Colin Murray-Boyles, who's your leading scorer, and you get Nick Pringle, who's averaging in double figures, both have the rock, that close to the basket, with a chance to make a play, and neither one makes a play, it hurts you at the end. It just does. I mean, credit to Vanderbilt. They're getting their hands on basketballs. And so we have to give them a thumbs up because, they're playing D, but at the end of the day, you've got to make a play at the end of the game. You just do.
Totally.
All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We'll come back, continue on talking about what happened last night at Vandy. Also, the women will play later today. And maybe an addition of a wide receiver from the transfer portal for South Carolina football. Halftime show, David Dare, Tyler Head, Terry Ford here on the game. Okay, so we talk about the Nest here all the time in the Vista on Gadsden. And if you don't believe what I'm telling you about the fantastic showroom, just go to thenestshowroom.com. You can just start with your thumb on your phone. You can see all the lighting. You can click on the bathroom additions you can make. You can look at all the fixtures, the appliances. You just click on it with your thumb. You can see everything if you don't believe me. Again, you just go to thenestshowroom.com. Get kind of a look at everything they have to offer at the Nest before you make that phone call, 803-978-2025. You set an appointment. You talk to an expert in the field of what you want to do. They will guide you. They will make sure your vision comes to life and do it within your budget. Again, 803-978-2025. Right here in the Vista, 1331 Gadsden. It is the Nest. Go to thenestshowroom.com and check out everything the Nest has to offer. What's trending at 2 here on the Halftime Show, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Tyler Head, David Ayer, Terry Ford, glad you could hang out with us. All right, we talked about the men, and it's just a frustrating loss last night in Nashville to Vanderbilt. 0-4, and if you look at the schedule, there are no Radfords.
No. And you struggled with Radford, by the way, and Presbyterian. I think this is the point where a lot of people say, you know what, it's fun, but I'm not seeing too much optimism here. Baseball's 29 days away.
Love you, Lamont, and that's what you hope doesn't happen. But right now, sitting at 0-4, our Twitter X poll question of the day after the loss to Vanderbilt, how much optimism do you have with Gamecocks men's basketball for the rest of the year? They can still turn it around, 5%. Hang in there. Have hope, 30%. Losing interest, 32%. On to baseball, 33%. Do have a comment. I love Coach Paris. I think it's some good players on this team, but they're not a good team overall at this point. It starts at point guard, losing to Lon Cooper. They need leadership and an identity, which they don't seem to have. Studi and Thomas being injured were tough blows as well. Yeah, I totally see where that's going. Absolutely. Absolutely. So there is our Twitter X poll. You can go to at 1075 The Game. So far, 113 votes and almost 800 views. Thank you very much again for jumping in and participating. We appreciate it. Also, some women's basketball tickets to give away this hour.
Oh, cool. Well, not for tonight's game.
Not for tonight. Yeah, just trip to Tuscaloosa.
I don't think you'd make it in time.
Yeah, probably not. Dreamy Josh has informed me that we have tickets.
Okay. Now we just got to remember to give them away. That's the problem.
What to give what away?
Exactly.
All right, so speaking of the women, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip tonight on our sister station, 98.5 WOMG, taking on 19th-ranked Alabama. Bama is without their leading scorer. But Alabama, the one thing they do well is they shoot it from three, 38% from three this year. So, again, the thought is South Carolina should handle Alabama pretty easily. But Alabama, you start making threes, things could get a little interesting, at least for a period of time.
You get cooking from the outside and you have an on night, you can certainly give anybody problems. And, again, this is a talented team. Whether they beat Ole Miss the other day in a rebound from that loss to that 44-point loss to Texas the other week. So, talented roster. They go pretty deep on the bench. Their bench is not as effective in scoring as South Carolina's is, but they're going to be able to rotate a lot of girls out there tonight. But, again, if Carolina plays to the standard with the aggressiveness we saw them play against Texas, I think they should be fine.
Yeah. They should get the W in Tuscaloosa. But, again, one thing Alabama does well is they shoot it well from three.
It's so funny talking about the women's basketball team because they are so talented and so good. And, again, we try and find angles and stories for all these games, but it's like if they play up to their standard, they should win by 20, 25 points.
They should. I mean, again, this thing comes down to, and look, it's not right, but it's the way it is. It's really a compliment in a weird way. This all comes down to, okay, what are you going to do in the Final Four?
Yeah.
Because this team is so talented, if they're playing their B game, they should be able to maneuver through the NCAA tournament until you run into a UCLA, a Southern Cal, whatever.
How are you going to match up with Notre Dame in the Final Four and potentially Southern Cal or UCLA in the national championship?
And that's really...
And you have to earn that, which they have.
Yeah, no one's going to give it to you. You're not going to automatically get penciled in, but that's the compliment we give this program.
Sure.
We're not even talking about maneuvering through the SEC. We're like, you should do that. Yeah. Could you lose an SEC game? Sure.
Yeah. Oh, look.
Could you lose a conference tournament?
Yeah.
Championship? Sure.
Absolutely. You got to play LSU here in a couple weeks. You got to go to Texas. You still got a game against UConn. Like, they could trip up again, but the sky's not going to fall if they do.
No. At the end of the day, it all goes to what's your matchup in the Final Four. And like you said, that's not guaranteed by any stretch, but that's just the way we feel about this program at this point.
The standard of South Carolina women's basketball is so high. Anything less than anything less than a national championship appearance is disappointing. There are, 300 some odd programs around the country that would kill to just win a tournament game in a lot of cases.
Sure.
And for Carolina, obliterating Presbyterian in the first round, it's like, kind of what we're supposed to do.
All right, for football, Trey Wallace, transfer in the transfer portal from Penn State, second leading receiver for the Nittany Lions, their best wide receiver, caught 46 balls for 720 yards this past season in the portal. Reports are circulating all over the place that Wallace will make a visit to South Carolina. And if you're the Gamecocks and you could pull a guy like this who's got production and a resume of production, that just makes you deeper and better in your wide receiver room. And now you got a guy, not to say, this is a future first-round pick, but this is a guy who has been there and done that and has been productive. If you could add that to what you already have with a Nick Harbor and a Jared Brown and also a Mazio Bennett and all these young wide receivers coming in from high school, that would be a nice little a nice addition to your wide receiver room.
Again, he's the guy that could walk in the door day one and say, there's your X, your number one wide receiver that going into the first game against Virginia Tech would be your main guy. Now, again, that doesn't mean that, like you said, Harbor and these guys can't catch up and eventually maybe take over that spot as the year went on. But for day one, you know you have that guy, which is something you didn't have going into this year.
So we'll see what happens with Trey Wallace. Again, he's got Louisville, off the top of my head now, North Carolina, and Texas A&M also to visit. So,
which, hey, all those places need X wide receivers too.
And they've all got money last time I checked.
It's not a given that Carolina's going to land them, but man, it'd be a big deal if they could.
It would be nice. College Football Hall of Fame has opened the doors to a bunch of folks. It's a lot. Hey, look, it's a lot of people going in. Nick Saban, duh. Urban Meyer, duh. None of that was a shock or a surprise.
By the way, you don't get in the Hall of Fame for being a good person off the field.
Well, then Urban Meyer wouldn't get in.
No, he would.
No, just not to be mean. Urban Meyer's not getting in. And we look, you know what you get with Urban.
Sure. Great coach, slimy person.
Mm-hmm. And if you ever thought about that kind of person, just go to that mess that happened at Ohio State with his assistant coach.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, that was that stuff in the summer. Remember? And when he won that Rose Bowl, stuff in the summer. No, Urban, it was some pretty big stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think you should refer to it that way.
No, that was a felony, we call it.
Yeah. And, there were victims.
Yes. Others going in, Michael Vick.
Legend.
I mean, look, I know Michael Vick was only played 2 years at Virginia Tech, but that first season he's a redshirt freshman starter. One word, wow. Just wow.
And took him all the way to the national championship.
Well, they got beat by Florida State. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Beamer was on that team.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just, he'll tell you some Michael Vick stories.
I'm sure he will.
Michael Vick was it was incredible.
People thought, and again, this has nothing to do with the College Football Hall of Fame, but people thought he was going to redefine what a quarterback was in the NFL, and certainly had some great moments, but never did not live up to what his full potential in the NFL could have been, of course.
No, and he even said, I thought was interesting with Michael Vick, when he finished up his career, because his best all-around season as a quarterback was with Andy Reid in Philadelphia, where he came in because of injuries, took over, and was just, not only was he Michael Vick running around, but he was Michael Vick the passer.
Yeah.
And he even said, after his career was over, he said, I wish I would have learned how to play quarterback in the film room and would have taken it seriously. I learned under Andy Reid.
And that was a big knock on him in Atlanta, that he did not take the development process as, again, a God-given ability out the you-know-what, but he didn't take the time to focus in and study that he should have that could have made him a better quarterback then.
Yeah, I mean, because it's human nature. When you are that physically gifted and you've always just been better, right? You walk on the field and you're better.
Yep.
Someone says, hey, by the way, dude, you got to study film. Why don't you study my film, bro?
Sure.
I'm going to take off. And, of course, there were the off-the-field things with Michael Vick that we all know all about. But Michael Vick on the field was wow. In college at Virginia Tech, it was something to watch. All right. Today is January 16th. It's the greatest day in the history of the world. We'll get into that next. David Ayer, Tyler Head, Terry Ford, halftime show here on The Game. Greatest day in the history of the world, January 16th. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, David Dare. Halftime show on the game. Come up here in a little bit. We'll have our Firehouse subtext of the hour at 803-404-6100 and talk to our buddy Jay Phillips. The handoff to the postgame show sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. Not far back in the Wayback Machine today.
Okay.
1962. Wilt Chamberlain of the Philadelphia Warriors scores 42 points, grabs 24 rebounds, and is the All-Star MVP as the East beat the West 150-130 in the All-Star game. Now let's look at that score. You hear that score?
Yeah.
150-130. So a tight, tense defensive struggle, Tyler.
As most All-Star games are.
That's my point. Today we're screaming and yelling about the All-Star game, and we always hear this, back in the old days. No, back in the old days, they weren't playing defense either. Now, a lot of us in the upper part of the demographic that listens to this station, over the age of, I would say, 45, can remember some of those All-Star games of the 80s and 90s where the score was lower and it seemed like everybody took it a bit more seriously. 1962, 280 points combined.
Yeah.
Something tells me they weren't playing really high-level defense back in the early 60s in the All-Star game either.
No, and look, I contend the only All-Star game that's actually worth watching is the Major League Baseball All-Star game because it is the closest thing to the actual product that you're going to get because it's not necessarily a contact sport. The risk of injury is a lot lower as opposed to basketball and football and all that kind of stuff. I love the fact that the NFL is just completely punted on the Pro Bowl. We're like, look, you're playing flag football anyway. Let's actually put some flags on you and just make this into its own thing.
That was the far and away the worst All-Star game because you don't want to replicate a real game.
No.
I mean, do you want to see your the best player on your team tear his ACL playing in the Pro Bowl?
I know we all love the clip of Sean Taylor lighting that dude up in the 06 Pro Bowl. I imagine he got a stern talking to at halftime or after that game like, bro,
seriously,
I get it. It's your thing, but this is the Pro Bowl. We're in Hawaii. We're just relaxing and trying to have a good time. I'm not trying to end my career in this game. Chill.
And that's the thing. All-Star game, like now, I mean, people bag on the NBA All-Star game, and the hockey purists can't stand the NHL All-Star game. And I'm like this. First of all, it's an exhibition.
Yeah, it doesn't count. You forget about it 2 days later.
Exactly.
Who cares? If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. Most of us don't.
I mean, when I have it on, can I be honest? I don't need to see another game.
No.
And this is just me personally, and I'm probably in the minority. I sort of like having a dude throw a pass off the backboard, another cat come in there and 360 dunk it.
Right.
I kind of like seeing things I don't see in a regular game. And then but it used to be they would do that for 3 quarters, right? Mm-hmm. And then in between the third and fourth quarter, they all got together and said, okay, now let's go play a serious quarter of basketball.
Right.
And was that fun to see the highest level of the highest level getting each other's grill in what is the ultimate pickup game for a quarter where they're actually semi-serious? But not to the point of hurting each other?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, but at the end of the day, I don't need a real game.
Yeah. And now they've created incentives and the winning team gets this and, you're drafting players now and Team LeBron and Team KD or whatever it is. And none of this stuff works. It all ends up being the same.
You're trying to make something relevant that's not relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Just stop it.
Again, there's a segment of people that are going to watch it regardless just because, hey, it's all my favorite players in one place. Again, you're going to have that audience forever.
Right.
But I'm not one of the ones interested usually.
And I'm with you. The Major League Baseball All-Star Game is the closest to a real game. If you want to watch a bunch of All-Stars play in a real game, that's the closest one you get.
Ridiculously, it used to have the stakes of determining home field in the World Series.
Don't start me with that. It was, you know what? Out of all the look, Bud Selig did some things that were fine, but that decision alone should have got you banned from baseball for the rest of your life, Bud Selig.
If I'm on a team, because you're halfway through the season at that point, if I'm on a team that I know is not making the playoffs, I'm thinking, screw these guys. I'm not trying to help them out.
Yeah, it just... Again, that was because of a tie in an All-Star game. Again, who cares?
Yeah,
Who cares if an All-Star game ends in a tie?
You know what? If that happens, we can have a bunt-off to determine the winner.
Right. Let's just do something silly. Hot dog eating contest between the 2 starting pitchers.
Why not?
Whatever. 1972, the Dallas Cowboys win their first Super Bowl, beating the Miami Dolphins, running for 252 yards in a 24-3 win. That was the first one for the Cowboys after losing Super Bowl V to the Colts.
So the Cowboys' entire Super Bowl run was encompassed in what, 24 years? So the last one they won would have been
96, I think.
96 before I was born. And then, so they've gone longer without even appearing in a championship game than that run of Super Bowl wins.
Yeah. Wonder why that changed.
When did Jerry Jones start owning the team?
1974, Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford were elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Mantle elected in his first year of eligibility, Ford in his second. Look, again, if you don't vote for Mickey Mantle, you should lose your vote. This whole not being unanimous is ridiculous.
But no, nobody can be unanimous,
right?
Terry.
Because, Babe Ruth wasn't unanimous. Yeah, okay. Also, greatest day in the history of the world. 1993, Michael Jordan scores 64 points. Chicago lost in overtime. Think about that.
We've been talking today about how Lamont Paris is punishing the team today for that bad force. How much do you think Michael Jordan punished his teammates for that?
Jeez. Have you ever read the Jordan Rules?
I've heard, yeah.
Reading the Jordan Rules, yeah. If you read about the maniac that Michael Jordan was about winning, and just he was crazy in practice, and punched Steve Kerr in the face in practice.
Yep.
Basically ruined the career of grown men to where they cried. Brad Sellers went and played like in Kazakhstan to get away from Michael Jordan because Jordan was so tough on him in practice.
Yep.
So to lose that game, Jordan in the locker room after that game,
Coach, I got this.
Just wow. This day in 2008, Bobby Knight becomes the first men's Division I basketball coach to reach 900 wins when his Texas Tech Red Raiders upset number 10 Texas A&M. Bobby Knight was, again, a phenomenal basketball coach. Another book, Season on the Brink, is a phenomenal book by John Feinstein about Bobby Knight and the Indiana Hoosiers. But again, when Knight, everybody let Knight's behavior go when he was winning championships and going to Final Fours. When Knight stopped doing that, all of a sudden, this guy's kind of a loon.
Yeah, becomes a problem.
He's nuts. He's got anger issues.
We excuse a lot of things when you can win.
I'll say this, and I can't obviously prove it. If the Indiana Hoosiers just came off a national championship and Bobby Knight has his hand on his player's throat, they handle it differently.
Sure.
I'm just telling you. Because they handle all that stuff differently when he was winning. Also, greatest day in the history of the world. We got time for one more? Sure, let's do it. Why not? This we forget, and I'll do this for Jets fans. 2011, the New York Jets stunned the New England Patriots 28-21. The Patriots had the league's best record, suffered their third straight postseason loss. Mark Sanchez throws 3 touchdown passes. Brady sacked 5 times. Jets go to their second straight AFC Championship game where they get beat.
And they thought that was the beginning of a run of dominance. Rex Ryan, Mark Sanchez. This was the new dynasty of the AFC, and they haven't been in the playoffs since.
And the next thing that happened after that was big for the Jets. 2 words, butt fumble.
That's right. That was that following Thanksgiving.
Yep. So people forget. I think that's the one post game where Bart Scott said that the Patriots defense couldn't stop a nosebleed or whatever it was.
I believe it was.
Yep. And the Jets were riding high. 2011. How's it been going
hey,
since?
Rex Ryan can go take the head coaching job and revitalize that magic.
Yep.
I think Sanchez has still got some years left on him. If you can pry him out of the broadcasting booth.
Yeah, you can bring old Sanchez back. All right, greatest day in the history of the world, January 16th. All right, Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up next, 803-404-6100, and our handoff with the post-game show sponsored by Little Pigs on Alpine. That is next as we wrap this sucker up. What am I saying? Halftime show. Tyler Head, David Dare, Terry Ford here on The Game. Our halftime show. Jay Phillips coming in here punching lights and buttons and messing with stuff.
Jay has studio settings that have to be to his
Jay is a
specific
studio
preferences.
diva.
It is driving him crazy that these
the
blinds are down now.
Drive him insane.
Yes.
He's got to keep his eyes open for any kind of surprise attacks coming from Gervais Street.
Well, you never know when someone's going to come at that door.
I hadn't thought about that, but now you
gotta, listen,
right.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Got an email from the blinds guy, and I said, no, we love the blinds just the way they are, especially Jay Phillips.
Yes.
So.
Hey, listen. I don't mind admitting it, so I'm good.
That's what I love. At least you would, like whenever he talks with the blinds, like I'll be upstairs and I'll send him a text. We're talking about the blinds again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm good, man. Again, self-awareness is not a big issue for me.
All right, give
Jay
us a fire.
says I haven't changed. The things around me have.
Yeah, and I don't like it.
I don't like it.
803-446.
Well, that is. I mean, that's accurate.
Yeah,
That's true.
Accurate.
That's accurate.
It is. It's you nailed it. Is what you did.
You know, I mean, I want my working environment for my 3 hours in here.
And we were just talking about something about what's coming up on the post-game show soon. I said the best thing is going to be on the video stream. Because, we care about that as a station.
Of course, we do.
Until 3 o'clock. Half of the post-game show cares about it, too.
I care. I just...
Jay doesn't like being watched.
No, he doesn't like to... Yeah, exactly.
He's been on the run for 15 years, and this is
there's someone
seriously
who's
threatening breaking his cover.
That weekend at Myrtle Beach when he was 19, he's still running
Jay Phillips isn't even your real name, is it?
No.
I don't know what we're talking about.
You ever see that movie? You haven't seen the movie. You saw the movie Face Off back in the day.
Yeah.
With Nicolas Cage and John Travolta?
Yeah, I say with Travolta.
They took each other, they took the faces and changed faces and everything.
Oh, okay.
That's Jay. That's not Jay's face. Nope. It's another man's face.
No, it's not.
All right, what do you got there on the old Firehouse subtext of the hour?
Hot Rod Hewitt with some optimism for men's basketball. At least they beat Clemson.
Oh, yes.
So there you go.
There you go,
If nothing else happens this year, you at least have that.
Absolutely. Nice job. So,
you needed that one to be a good win, and it still is, but...
Last night was, and obviously you'll talk about it for 3 hours, on and off. The reality is...
Yeah, I'm not talking about that game for 3 hours.
Yeah, no. Despite 25 turnovers, despite shooting yourself in all your feet and other appendages, you had a chance to win that game in the last 4 minutes, and you couldn't make the plays to win the game.
You had a chance to win it in the last minute, and you couldn't. I mean, no, the turnovers. And Elijah said that look, people can have their opinions about whatever, and anytime your team loses, you want to blame the refs or something. I was like, the refs had nothing to do.
Did the refs help them turn it over 25 times?
You turned the ball over, and some of them were just, like JV high school turnovers.
Yeah, unforced, unnecessary.
Like who you passing the ball to, man?
Right.
Like just things like that.
Yeah.
No, Carolina... I mean, I don't want to say Carolina beat themselves because I think Vanderbilt is clearly an improved basketball team / program this season. But for South Carolina to come back from the halftime deficit and even, I think, down 7 during the second half, I think, and tie the game up and do it with good defense and solid play and then just revert right back to it.
You had multiple possessions in a one-score game.
I mean, you could have won. Yeah, dare I say, last night South Carolina should have won the basketball game. So I'm not. Again, I don't like taking from an opponent, so I'm not attempting to do that either. But South Carolina should have won that basketball game. You can't.
And to the fouling thing, we talked about this with AJ Hoggard of Vanderbilt. If a referee is going to let you shoulder people and forearm people and push off and not call it, you're going to do it until it's called.
Yeah,
and that's just the way all sports is done.
Yeah, the refs had nothing to do with South Carolina losing.
And I feel bad for Jacoby Wright, who even John Sunvol was like, "What do you do?" But the bottom line is that's not why you lost the basketball game.
You had your opportunities, and
I guess the important question here, though, is: are you going to be able to make it through 3 hours with your
my bad
clunky back?
I don't know, man. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. If I move funny, it's
so we're doing our meeting, but the show yesterday, Jay and Elijah and I, and Jay's reaching to, was it your water?
Coffee.
But,
sure.
And he's like,
beverage.
He's like, oh, and the Bailey's and coffee, right? Always before the show.
As far as you know.
It's kind of a tradition. And he's reaching, and I'm noticing he's stopping. I'm like, you okay? You all right?
And I don't know what happened either. Just age, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I stretch every day.
It's all those innings of pitching when you were a young man.
I wish that were it.
Should take up yoga.
I stretch a lot now. In all seriousness, and those of you who are around my age and may have this thing, I know that it's a thing. I mean, I enact. From what I understand, it's maybe not common, but it is certainly not uncommon.
I'm with Tyler here. The little Beckham hot yoga is where you got to go.
It may help.
We need to hook him up with Kendall.
Kendall teaches Beckham hot yoga.
That's right.
So get you
I know
there.
Langston does the Bikram yoga.
Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah, they say that's the thing, man. You walk out there sweating like a pig too.
Well,
Jay loves to sweat.
Yeah, well,
Jay sweats walking. He walked in here sweating.
It's easy.
Could you see Jay Phillips taking Beckham hot yoga?
He needed a little
good for
he
me,
needed a kiddie pool around him because there'd be so much sweat.
Some type of absorption.
Well, everybody sweats, but Jay.
Now, there's an episode. I mean, and this is in the '90s, right? There's an episode of Frasier when all Frasier's doing is blowing out birthday candles, and all of a sudden his back locks up. Yeah, and I was like, "That's me," because I was like, I didn't do anything, and yet. So,
what's coming up on the post-game show, my man?
We will talk a lot of basketball. The Dion story seems to be growing, and Brad will join us from Tuscaloosa ahead of tonight's women's game. So we got a lot to do.
All right, post-game show with Jay and Elijah coming up. Tyler, fine work. David Ayer, nice job. We'll do this again tomorrow, the halftime show live from Pro Swing. Again, that's tomorrow.